I think I'm here to represent the part of Bill that most people don't know about. So I want to share 3 Bill stories. I want to tell you how I met him and what he said to me when I asked him to mentor me. And then I want to tell you what I think the honor that you've been given to be associated with his name means, and what I'm committed with all the other people that are going to speak to are willing to do today. I don't have prepared remarks because I would never stick to them, because Bill gets a place in me that I don't really know. I didn't have a father growing up. I had a stepfather who eventually I had to ask to leave the house. And so my life took a lot of twists and turns, but I came from an extraordinarily middle-class family, very ethnic, where first-generation Americans whose family came from immigrants, and everybody knew they were supposed to go to school, get an education, and do all those things. So I was actually in a very good position to have a very good life. But I fit a lot of the things that Bill loved, which is I'm not an engineer, I'm not a founder, I didn't go to business school, I'm clearly not getting by on my looks, and I'm pretty much a salesman, I'm loud, I curse, and I'm from the East Coast. So, but I'm not Bill Campbell, but that's why he liked me. So Bill used to say, Dan, you are contrast in Silicon Valley. You're not what we normally see here. And the message there was simply this: doesn't matter where you come from. Matters who you are, matters the effort you put in, matters the attitude that you bring, and it matters whether or not you care. So when I went to go ask Bill to mentor me, I had done a lot of those things that were introduced. I had been the president and CEO of Yahoo. I'd taken a company before that public called ZDNet, which I sold to CNET in 2001 for $1.6 billion. Do not get excited. I did not make a lot of money off that. Then went and retired from Yahoo, did some charity work, and then went back and ran Guitar Hero for a while, and then came to Chegg, which was a very interesting transition, and one that I couldn't have made without Bill, and the company would not be around if Bill had not mentored me. We'll get into that a little bit. So I had a lot of visible success. I mean, even though you don't know who I am, I had been in very powerful positions. And when I got the job at Chegg, it was the smallest thing I had run in a while. It was about a $5 million business. We were renting textbooks. We were changing the model. But I cared passionately about education because my mom was a public school teacher for 39 years. My wife's mom was the secretary to the deans at our high school. And I had benefited from the American dream and education. So I went to Bill's office, and I seriously knocked on the door, and I got on my knees, and I said, look, I've done well in my life, but I've never been great. If I'm going to face education, I need to be great. Can you help me? And he shows up at my office a month later, meets with my management team, introduces himself, and says, I'm Bill Campbell, and this is where the language disclaimer comes in. He said, I'm Bill Campbell. I don't take stock. I don't take cash. I don't take and I love Dan's wife. I love his children. I'll put up with Dan. So you're either in or you're out. If you're in, I'll mentor you. If you're out, get the f out of the room. So welcome to Bill's world. And he ends everything with, and I thought Brad would end it with his, you've been given a gift by associating with his name, don't fuck it up, which was a very typical thing for Bill to say. I think this is the way he said, I love you. So that's when we started. Now my company almost went out of business 3 times. And to be honest with you, you've been faced with adversity in your life. You played sports, you played team sports. I'm sure there were people that were bigger than you that you played against, faster than you, stronger than you, clearly not smarter than you, but you know, you face adversity. You face it after you graduate. Life is not a straight line. It goes left to right and oftentimes backwards, and that's where a guy like Bill changes your life. Bill was not a destination guy. He was a journey guy. And the journey is what mattered. And you heard a lot of it in Brad's speech, and it brought back a lot of emotional memories for me, which was, you don't know if you fail until the journey's over. And that's probably the biggest takeaway that I took from Bill. We're going to screw up. You're going to screw up in your life. You're going to screw up in your work. You're going to screw up in things that you never imagined. You're going to screw up on things that you know you shouldn't have. And you're going to screw them up while you know you shouldn't be doing it. But the journey was Bill's magic. Taking you to the next step of the journey. Getting you to a place that you didn't think you can get to. Getting you out of bed when you didn't want to get out of bed. making you lead when you didn't know you had leadership left in you. And so I want to just tell you a couple of those stories that were, to me, very, very interesting. Probably the one that had the greatest meaning to me, there's a couple of very funny ones, I don't know if I should tell them. But the one that made the biggest difference, and the one that has to do with leadership, is this one, because that's what I was asked to speak about. My company had an IPO. We priced at $12.50. The first trade was at $11.25. For those of you who don't play this game at home, that's not good. I think it's also illegal. I don't know how you can have your first trade down. But 2 million shares traded down. The stock closed at $9.68. I'm on CNBC. My wife and 2 daughters are there. They bought the frickin' stock at $12.50. And so that was the first day as a public company. Eventually, the stock zoomed all the way down to $3.15. So in this town, that's a no-no. It's embarrassing. How do you keep people? It's like having a losing record. How does your coach convince you to come back the next year? Right? It's hard. And like all of us, we think about quitting. We think about doing something else. We make this someone else's problem. We blame it on other people. And I was right there in that moment. And I get a call, and this is near the end of Bill's life. I get a call. I hadn't seen Bill in a while because he used to come up once a month for 3 hours. He'd come to the board meetings even though he was not a board member. I mean, when he was in, he was in. And I learned that from Bill. It's like get in or get out. And so if you guys have that name with you, if you're not all in, you're blowing a great opportunity. So my assistant said, Bill's on the phone. And like everybody else, when Bill calls, you go running upstairs. Not particularly great shape, so I was out of breath. And I said, Bill, what's going on? He said, because I want to take a little walk. I said, oh my God, you're feeling better. I'll be at your house in 20 minutes. He said, no, you're not coming here. I said, oh my God, you're going to come here. Everybody would love to see you. I'll gather the company. He's like, no, I'm not coming there. I was like, so where are we walking? He said, well, I'm going to take you for a little walk behind the woodshed. And I said, oh. Should I leave my pants on or take them off? And he said, you can leave them on, but you're going to feel it. He said, you know, Dan, leaders lead. Leaders don't quit. Leaders don't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Leaders believe, and people then believe them. Are you a leader? Or are you not a leader? Hangs up the phone. Somehow Bill sensed that I had stopped leading, that I was about to quit on myself, my company, my team. I don't know how he knew, but he knew. And from that day forward, I gathered my team together a day later when I had a chance to figure out what that meant. And I said the same thing to them. Are we leading? Is this happening to us? Or can we make something happen for us? This was Bill. And so from that moment on, the team sat down, we recommitted. My team has been together for 7 years, which is a rarity in Silicon Valley. I've had only one executive leave the C team under their own will because they had a job. Bill was always pay it forward. And if one of your people could get a job better than the one you can give them, you need to go get them that job. And my general counsel left me to become the general counsel of Airbnb. And I went and met with the CEO of Airbnb and told him why he should hire him. Because that was what Bill's philosophy was. Your job is to make the people around you better, to give them an opportunity to pass you. And this was what Bill was about. And as a result of that meeting, my team put their hands in, and we turned the company around. And we went from a company that was losing $18 million and spending $130 million a year on textbooks when we went public only 4 years ago, to a company that this year, if you believe analysts, not only will not use cash, but will produce over $20 million in free cash flow, make over $40 million in EBITDA, and now is one of the fastest growing companies in the space and the leader in direct-to-consumer education space. And I'm promising you to tell you, my contribution to that was not quitting when Bill told me not to. Bill's contribution to that was building an environment where you could rise up from having that crushing moment. And I had had that crushing moment. It is hard when everything is going the wrong way. You don't believe in yourself. People stop believing in you. You think everybody thinks negatively about you. They don't, but you feel that way, right? You know when you've blown a play? So that was the core of what Bill was. He was the journey. You don't fail to the end. You don't know if you failed to the end. And so every day you have a chance to go up and renew yourself. So I want you to understand who you're associated with, because to me, it changed my life. I didn't have that fatherly direction in my life. Bill could talk to me differently than he would talk to you, Brad, or talk to Larry Page, or talk to Jeff Bezos. The fact that my name could be mentioned in that group of people is astounding to me. And if you don't feel the fact that you were connected to this trophy and you don't understand the power of it, you're missing something special about yourself. And that was the other thing Bill did. He found your superpower. And he was funny as hell. And he never really told you what to do. He told you stories. So I want to just tell you 2 other quick stories, and then I'll leave you. Because I could do this all day, and actually want to do this all day. I feel liberated. And I want you to know the day the stock went over the IPO price, when it finally got back, you know, that just a few years later, went to Bill's gravesite. And we do have a quad named the Bill Campbell Quad, and we tell the story of the Bill Campbell Quad, because if there wasn't for Bill, there would be no Chegg, because I would have quit, the company would have ran out of money. But Bill also had, like, you know, Bill also tried to contain himself, tried to stay on prompter, if we will. So I would bring him to all my board meetings, and I had a board that all hated each other when I first took over the company. And there was a guy on the board that I didn't particularly like. And I was angry because I got sold a bill of goods. I was told we were taking the company public in 6 months, we were going bankrupt. So, you know, I'm going up against the enemy is what I think. And Bill would sit in and he'd coach me after. So you always want your board members to read the stuff before you go to the board meeting, and they're only supposed to comment on the stuff you want to comment on. Well, we had one guy who never read it and then took the entire board meeting. So at one point I cut him off. I was like, I told you to read the goddamn book before I sent it out. I told you what pages to read. I told you any questions, call. I'm not wasting the board's time on this. So the next day I get a call from Bill. He says, want to come over to the office? I was like, sure. I walk into the office, takes out a penalty flag, and he throws it. He goes, piling on, roughing the passer, giving him the business. I mean, every penalty in the world. He said, you can't do that if you're going to be the CEO of a company. And I said, okay, what should I do? He said, here's what you do. You send it out an extra week in advance. You identify exactly the pages you're going to cover. You tell everybody you'll take no questions on any other page at the meeting because we have a limited period of time. And you control, you lead, you run the board. It happened to you. You could have stopped that. Like, all right. So I go to the meeting. Guy does the same thing. But this time, I'm like the nicest guy in the world. So I'm like, well, let's take the time to answer each question. Board meeting went on for 4 extra hours. Get a call the next day from Bill. Comes to the office. He goes, I was wrong. Fire the fat. So the thing I can most closely relate to all of you, because I don't have a lot of time and I'm not as famous as the other speakers, is this. Bill was fabulous and flawed. I would imagine you're all fabulous, otherwise you wouldn't be in this room, but you probably feel that you're flawed too. We all do, and we all are. But the journey is what matters, trying to improve yourself every day. But the key way to improve yourself that I got from Bill was, how much do you care about the people that you're spending time with? How important is it for you that they are better than you when you're finished? How important is it for you that they can succeed beyond your capacity to succeed? And trust the process, trust your teammates. Bill would go meet with my staff without me knowing and talk to them without me knowing, and they could tell him anything without me knowing. He never had to report back. Because what Bill said was, I love you, I have your back, and anything I hear is going to be for the betterment of how I can get you to the place that I believe you're capable of getting to. So believing in yourself, believing in your teammates, trusting it, trusting the process, making yourself vulnerable. I mean, it's a big deal. And for athletes like all of you, making yourself vulnerable is not something you've ever been taught or trained. Being a CEO is not something where you're supposed to be vulnerable. You're supposed to have all the answers. Being a parent feels the same way. So what I take away from the Bill experience is love matters. Bill was a hugger, I'm a hugger. Bill was a kisser, I'm less of a kisser. when Bill hugged you, you felt an energy that is indescribable because it was genuine. Bill Cambpell was authentic. I only became better when I started to become authentic. When I started to realize that my gifts are my gifts, they're not his, they're not Brad's, they're not any of the other amazing people that he's been with, and I'm never going to be those people, and I don't have to be. What I had to be was the best that I could be, care about the people around me, pay it forward, give back. And the last thing I would say is this. What I learned from Bill about networking, you've all been told to network. This is a network event, right? Bill never saw networking as transactional. He never thought, I need to meet that person because I need to get something from that person. Bill wanted to meet the person because that was what he wanted, to have a relationship with that person. Networking is not a means to an end. It's actually the end. If you build that relationship, you will have a network that will be so powerful and so valuable, and you don't even know what for. You don't even know when you're going to need it. But I guarantee you, if you build a network like Bill did, out of love and trust and caring and driving to a place that we didn't know we were capable of with no judgment, you will have a network that is so powerful and so strong, and you will need it. You will need it in your personal life, you'll need it in your professional life, you will need it in your family life, you will need it when you didn't know you needed it, and I've needed it more times than not. And because I'm a Bill Cambpell alumni, I can call any of these people and they take the call because we share that common bond. So the last thing I want to say is this. You don't know who I am, you don't need to know who I am, but I'm the beneficiary of the American dream, of which Bill Cambpell was the leading part of that for me as I got to be an adult, which is rare that happens. So my commitment is to any of you that are associated with this name, that I already love you, because I already know you have characteristics better than mine, ones that he would be proud of, and he would want us to work with you on whatever it is you need. So I'm Dan Aracheg. You can reach me at any time. It's a family. Families have bad days, they have good days, but at the end of the day, they're family. And I feel blessed to have been asked to come here to speak for a few minutes. I have trouble speaking about this without tearing up because I just cannot tell you my life had a chance to go that way or that way. And 3 years ago, much to Bill's dismay, I quit drinking because Bill was the Bud Light king. But he thought that was part of my journey and thought it was a great thing to do. So much so, in typical Bill Cambpell way, he brought me over to his house. He said, I'm very proud of you. He opened a Bud Light, he toasted me, and he said, Dan, don't f it up. So I love y'all. I hope to keep in contact with you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.